million swell. And of course, all of the money that those of us who are older put in did not go into the trust fund. What it went was, it was used by our government officials to pay for ongoing expenses of our government. So, and at the same time, we have borrowed $17 trillion. If you have Medicaid, Medicare, Social Security, if your son or your daughter is also on Social Security disability, which my son is, if my son gets Social Security off my Social Security, all of those are on borrowed money. And at some point, the Chinese government is going to say, we're not loaning you any more money. And at that point, what's going to happen? We are going to have a tsunami. And as much as you all have worked politically to make sure that your kids get what they need, the resources are going to start drying up. You can bank on it. That's the bad news. The good news is you can now begin to plan to build the kind of community where your sons and your daughters will be living the way we all live since we walked out of the trees. Because all of us are going to have to live that way. Old people are going to have to live that way. Our special needs kids are going to have to live that way. And we're going to have to live that way. And what way is that? It's called extended families. And so if you're in the construction business, building single-family homes, people aren't going to be able to afford it. But if you're going to start building homes where you can have extended families, and the kinds of extended families I'm talking about is not going to be based simply on blood, although there will be those as well. My wife and I live with my daughter and her husband and 2 grandchildren. Wonderful. My daughter works, my son-in-law works, I work, and my wife works. But between the 4 adults, everything gets done. My kids, my grandkids get to school. Everything works out wonderfully well. We save an awful lot of money and time. And I get to do a lot of extra things for my other son who lives in town and his wife and my other granddaughter. Saves a lot of time, a lot of money, and my special needs son lives in this house that I bought for him. And we're looking for 2 roommates. Now, I've had the opportunity to get some training from the state of Kentucky in what's called social role valorization, which is a wonderful idea. And it's something I've been trying to do without ever calling it such a wonderful word. I was just trying to normalize my son. So, I don't want him dressing up in shabby clothes, because when he walks out the door, people are going to say, there's something wrong with that kid. And I don't want him having a case manager manage my son, because I think my son can manage himself pretty well. And if he doesn't, I want him to learn the way you and I learned how to manage ourselves. And so my son drives. Was that scary? You'll bet your ass it was scary. Did he have some accents? Yes, he did. But now he's been living in this house by himself for 5 months. And I brought this for you all. If you haven't read it yet, you need to read it. But you know what it says? It says that they evaluated 500 autistic young adults. These are your kids. And they may not be talking to you about this yet, but these kids, when they were evaluated independently, this is what they said. 85%, actually 95% of them want to live in their own homes. Some of them want roommates, some of them don't. And you can do that. You can do that. And what I can show you how to do is you can buy a little house for your son or your daughter. You can help them get some roommates. You can use the trust fund. I don't know if any of you have met, where is that? Excuse me just a second, I'll find it. How can I use special needs trust or supplemental needs trust to help my loved one with disabilities? And her name is Karen Perch. What she can do is she can help you set up some trust. In my case, we're going to set up 2 trusts for my son, so that when he gets roommates, which we will help him, so that my son has some great strengths and some real weaknesses, right? Don't we all? I know I do. Without my wife, I mean, I've been married 33 years, but if she did not take care of some of my real weaknesses, I mean, I couldn't balance a checkbook. What I did before I got married was every year or so I just opened up a new bank account. If I'm lying, I'm lying. You know, and I mean, I've run multi-million-dollar businesses, but I've always had to find an assistant manager who could run the heck out of the business, because I'm a visionary. You know, I can build stuff, but run it, I mean, day-to-day stuff, oh my God, I'll run it into the ground. So, I found someone who matched my weaknesses with her strengths, and I matched her weaknesses with my strengths. And that's what extended families do. And that's what you can do with your son or your daughter. So my son has some great strengths, but he's got some real weaknesses. So what do I do as a parent is, as we're right in the process right now, we've just completely redone the house. You know, if you can look in my pants and see the paint, because I just spent the entire last 2 weeks when I wasn't working with him painting the inside of the house. If any of you want to come, it's pretty cute. It's a cheap little house in a neighborhood that over the next 30 years is going to be really kind of nice. But right now it's pretty cheap. But he can get 2 roommates, and he'll probably make an extra $200 a month now. But over the next 30 years, as we invest that, he'll have a nice little savings when he retires. The bank owes the house now, but in 30 years, he'll own the house. So he'll have his own house. He'll have his own trust fund, and he will have learned how to live his life. And he'll have learned how to manage with some friends. And guess what? That's how we did it, isn't it? I mean, you married somebody, and you learned how to live your life, and you developed some friends, and you learned how to make a living. And today, we met with Mr. Milt Tyree. And Mr. Milt Tyree brought with him Miss Bev. Anybody met Miss Bev? She's rocking. 50 years old. She didn't find out she had Asperger's until she was in her 30s or early 40s. She came, and she and my son Sam began to talk, and they're talking about Sam going to college. First time he's ever talked about that seriously.
He's talking about the stuff at HDI.
Away, and Sam started talking about going to college. Guess where? Eastern Kentucky. Your kids can do this. Your kids can do this. And you can help do this. You can. But you know what you got to do? You got to say, all right. I mean, it's not just about pushing them. I mean, one of the things Milt said to me today was, you know, you and your son have a pretty good relationship. Oh, yeah, we do. But I don't take any shit off of him. And when he starts saying, I'm not going to do that, I'm saying, are you kidding me? I mean, I've got 5 kids. Do I let any of my other kids say, I'm not going to do that? No. You know, just because you're disabled doesn't mean you don't have responsibilities as part of the family. Come on. Right? So, I mean, hey, you know, if you're not going to school, you're going to work. Where I live, isn't that how your parents raised you? So, I mean, there's some real, and that's, you can, I mean, and I'm sure you all are doing that, but, I mean, there are things that we can help our kids do simply, and in doing it, and it's part of being a family, and we, ASBG, we're a family. You know, when I need help, I can call Patty. I mean, I can't tell you how much Patty has helped me since I've been here. I can call Sarah. Huh? I mean, really. I mean, really. And all I'm telling you is this is not rocket science. This is saying, okay, where can I buy an inexpensive house? And how can I help my son or my daughter take that next step? They want to live on their own, and when they're ready, you can help them do it. And you can set it up so it's affordable for them, and it's affordable for you, and you can help them get some roommates that, and here's the secret with the Fairweather model. See, this guy was a social psychologist, and he worked out in Palo Alto, California in the late 50s. Let me get a little drink here.
It's Dr. George Fairweather, isn't he?
George Fairweather. So, what was happening in the late 50s? Guess what? They had invented phenothiazines, major antipsychotic medication. And they were pushing the craziest people, the most institutionalized people out of the state hospitals. And they were pushing these people into the communities. And guess what? Some of the people could actually make it because they had support systems in the community. They had families. But for those people that were so crazy and they didn't have any support system, they went right back into the hospital. And so started this, and that's what's happening today. That's another story. But these people kept circling back into the hospitals because they didn't have any support system, and because even with the medicine, you know, the medicine, the major antipsychotic medication makes you feel terrible. You know, I mean, it is a terrible, it makes you feel just terrible. You know, you get tardive dyskinesia, they're shaking, you know, and the saliva's going down there. It's terrible. So these people stop taking it as soon as they can. And then they start developing their psychotic symptoms. Then they get picked up by the police, and they go back to the local hospitals, and they go back to the state hospital. So what he did was he started putting them in groups, in small groups, in the state hospital. The Fairweather Small Group Lodge model. The lodge is in the community. The lodge is the extended family part of this model. Small group in the hospital, they begin to manage their own affairs. A staff member comes, and listen, I was involved in the initial training. It worked so well that the federal government hired this guy and his group of people to train, and they took it all over the country to the state hospitals, to train the state hospitals. And you know what? The training failed. You know why? The doctors and the nurses and the techs hated it. Why? Because it took power away from them and gave it to the patients. God forbid. Who's telling your kids what to do? Now be honest. What does a case manager do? Manage your son's or daughter's cases. What's the mental health system doing? Listen, I've managed mental health systems, and the biggest problem I had managing mental health systems is half the people I hired wanted to take care of people rather than help people take care of themselves. I mean, isn't that what we're supposed to be doing? Isn't, as parents, isn't that what you're trying to do? You're trying to help your kids learn how to manage their own lives, not manage it for them. And so this model failed basically because staff would rather tell patients what to do than take the time and have to do the hard work of letting people manage their own lives. But what he did, which was so brilliant, was you couldn't interfere with patient behavior. If you saw something they were doing, unless they were killing themselves or someone else, you wrote a note. And then the group got the note, and the group had to solve the problem, and they wrote an answer to the problem, and they handed the staff back a note. And that's how problems got solved. And that's how the patients learned to make good decisions. And then the group moved out into the community as a group, and some of these groups have been living and managing their own lives successfully for 30 and 40 and 50 years. These people so crazy they couldn't make it for a day on their own have been managing their own lives. And if you want to go see some of these groups, let me take you to Minneapolis, Minnesota. Because in Minneapolis, Minnesota, a group called I'll remember this, at 65 years old, I forget. But there's a group up there that has been doing this now since the middle 60s anyway. And the guy's name is John Trepp, and something Unlimited, Partners Unlimited, I think, or close to that. But anyway, there's a group that's been living on their own for so long that they're getting old. I mean, like, past 65 old. And so the board of this nonprofit organization said, "Y'all are getting so old. Don't you think you need to now be going into nursing homes?" And they said, "Thank you very much. You know, we think other people might probably need that, but we're a family. You know, don't separate us. I mean, you know, we've been living together for 30 and 40 years. Give it up." You understand? It really works. People learn to care for each other. And your job is to balance people's strengths and weaknesses. And that's what extended families do. So these extended families you can build based on strengths and weaknesses. You know what your weaknesses and strengths of your sons are. So Sam has strengths and weaknesses. So now as we are interviewing people to live with my son, we are going to be interviewing and balancing the people that will be living with him, their strengths and weaknesses. You know, Sam doesn't drink or smoke. Are we going to be letting people that drink or smoke be a roommate with my son? Absolutely not. Sorry. Sam's a Christian. I mean, if a Buddhist wants to be a roommate with my son, fine. You know? But, I mean, if you're a wild man, not fine. I mean, so, and then, if they have a problem, they write a note. Once a week, they have a meeting. And they have to work out their notes. I'm the group consultant. And I'm fair. I mean, Sam doesn't win because it's my son. I mean, the group wins. Two of the group say, this is how we do it. That's it. One of the issues is, always has to be, 3, 5, 7, 9, 11. You don't want to have a tie. But other than that, this is not rocket science. This is how families have lived since we climbed out of the trees. And this is how we are going to remake so that we can care for our elderly, we can care for our special needs kids. How to do it? See, we don't have enough money to pay for care. And if you're thinking about it, we're paying people minimum wage to care for our loved ones, our moms and our dads, to care for our kids. And we expect them to really care. And we're now doing legislation whether we're going to allow lawyers to sue nursing homes because the people that they're paying minimum wage aren't turning them enough. I mean, what's on? I don't want someone being paid $8 an hour and then giving them 10 or 8 or even 6 people to take care of and worry about whether they're turning them enough. I want to turn my grandmom or my mom. And if I'm not there, I want my wife or my son, even my autistic son, will turn my grandmom if they're living together and caring for each other. Am I right? And that's going to happen. We don't have the money for fee-for-service. It's gone. What we do have is we have the love and we have the desire to care for each other, and that's how we are going to be evolving as a society. Not just here. How about Japan? How about Russia? How about China? I'm telling you. You pick the country. How about India? Which country do you think can afford to hire people to pay for the people that need to be cared for? Who's got the money to do it? So what are we going to do? We are going to do what we have done for ages. We are going to build communities. Go to Borneo. I mean, I spent the first 15 years, 17 years of my life in the Philippines. I can go into any barrio. I lived in India. I can go into any village. And what happened? You walk into a house, there's 3 or 4 generations living together, and there's 3 or 4 families living in the same little village. Someone needs some help, there's always somebody around to be able to help you. And that's what's going to happen. And you can do that for your son and your daughter, and you can involve your family. And that's all this is. This is not rocket science. This is just developing a support system of your friends. That's what ASBG can be, and it's becoming. Thank you so much, Sarah, for what you do. I mean, your work is invaluable, just bringing us together. Thank all of you for being here. I mean, Patty, I say it again. I mean, you spend hundreds and hundreds of hours connecting us, and that's so important. But if any of you want to do this, I'll spend 1,000 hours with you, and I don't want a penny. I want to be the Johnny Appleseed, and people learn that you can do this, and it won't cost you a dime. It'll save you hundreds and thousands and tens of thousands of dollars, and your sons and your daughters will feel not only human, but they will have their own lives, and they will help others. And that's what will be the difference. And they'll help others, and they'll teach. My son's going to teach other people how to do this. Thank you very much.
Hey, thanks, Phil.
Questions? I'd be happy to answer. Of course, now I've managed mental health systems for many, many, many years. So there's a lot of issues that we haven't talked about. I'm happy to talk to you about them. I mean, diagnoses, therapy, medication, all of that stuff. I mean, it's all there, but none of it has to do with how do you be a family, an extended family, and a community, because that's all it is.
Phil, can you talk a little bit about maybe a sketch of how you started? Just walk through very briefly, very skeleton sketch of the purchase of the house and what needed to be done to make it a livable place for him or potential roommates.
Mm-hmm. My daughter is a realtor. Wouldn't you know? So, and I told her, I said, one of the things we want to do is we want to get Sam his own house. And it has to be at least 3 bedrooms. And she kept finding me 2-bedroom houses. I said, I don't want a 2-bedroom house because 2 people can't make decisions. I mean, they can, but, you're always fighting. I mean, that's why marriages have so much. I mean, if God created marriages with 3 people, they'd work a lot better. Is all I'm telling you. I mean, do I have a witness? I'm a pastor too. I mean, do I have? I mean, really? So she kept finding me 2-bedroom houses because we live on Richmond Road. That's where my daughter and her husband live. And so she was finding houses behind there, and the house we found is on Richmond Avenue. Back there. I mean, in a couple 3 blocks, and 10, 15, 20 years from now, it's going to be a nice little neighborhood. We're really close to the downtown area. And so she finally found me a 3-bedroom. And the reason for 3-bedroom is 2 rents. Now, so right now, I mean, if you go on Craigslist, you'll find my little ad. I just put it, last night. Room for rent, $300, all utilities paid, Wi-Fi, cable in your room, plus in the living room. You have your own room, you share the living room and the kitchen, fenced-in backyard, $300. I've had 15 calls.
Wow.
How many bathrooms?
What?
One bathroom?
One bathroom.
Oh,
One. Oh, I mean, yeah, but hey,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, $300. I mean, I think guys saying I'm paying $550. You know, so and they say, well, what do what do I have to do? First of all, I'm going to have a background check. I'm going to have a what is it called, that money check? What do you call that?
Credit check.
Credit check, and you got to pay first and last month's rent.
Yeah.
So that's before you walk in for the
Length of
interview.
lease, how long is your lease?
What's that?
How long is the
Lease
lease?
is going to be 6 months.
And is there a requirement that they have some form of disability, or do you want them not to have a form of disability? Is it okay if they do? What is your thought on that?
My thought is, I mean, I started by trying to recruit young adults from ASBG.
Yeah.
And what I found, and I mean, I'll be honest with you, what I found was parents were less open to that than I thought they would be, which is okay.
less open to them living alone. I mean,
I mean, it's a hard thing. I mean, I've been working on this for years, so I was ready. But I mean, when you have a young adult, there are risks involved in this. I don't care where they are, or how functional they are. When they've been living with you and you see the kinds of mistakes they make, it's a risky thing. I'm just telling you. So, I think in time, this will grow. But I think it just has to, it has to start, and someone has to start it. So,
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
But I do think it's going to start, and I think there are some young people that Gary and I visit with first and third Sundays that are becoming a little more interested. I know Sam is talking to a few that express some interest, but again, I think that it's one thing for the son or daughter to be interested. I think it's another thing for the parents to be ready at the same time. I think that's the problem. So at this point, we are talking with anyone who's interested, but there still has to be a match. If you read Fairweather's work, what Fairweather says, the critical issue is there has to be homogeneity, which is a fancy word for fit. There has to be fit around need. And if you pretend that you don't have any needs, I don't know why you get married. And the people that get married that pretend they don't have any needs, they'll have a hard time being married, I can just tell you. There has to be homogeneity around need. All of us have needs. I know I do. And there has to be heterogeneity around skills. And our job as parents, whether you're trying to find a roommate for your son or daughter or whatever, is to match the needs with the skills. Okay? Now, my son will only eat meat if you let him. And he's as big as a truck. I need to match him with someone who really cares about nutrition. I'm telling you, otherwise he's going to die before he's 40. I'm serious. And he'll have diabetes type 2 before he's 30. And I've talked to him about this a million times. But when I'm not there watching what he cooks and what he eats, I'm telling you, he eats chicken and hamburger and steak and pizza. That's it.
So is that some of what you put in your ad too? Did you say would like someone who is, or are you just waiting to screen that after that you've been contacted?
No, I'm going to let him do some of that screening too. Part of what I'm doing is, in the screening process, it's a mom, dad, and son sitting down with whoever we're going to meet with, and just kind of watching. You know, I'm wide open. I mean, so maybe that's not going to be the big issue. Yes, ma'am.
Do you have a formal form that the person would fill out that, like a getting to know you kind of thing or something like that, that you could email them or something where you could start to screen before you even do a face-to-face, like, I don't know. You know those, you know those things that you read and it's like, does this upset you, or kind of psychological thing, but also you could have stuff about, do you like health food, or you consider yourself a health food person. I don't know, but I mean, I'm just thinking there could be kind of some. Or as
maybe I will, but this is my first iteration.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, I'm kind of learning on the fly.
Yeah.
And my instinct is to allow people to be themselves and not spend too much time trying to shape at the front end, but to allow people to come and allow themselves to be themselves and see what we get. But I think that being on a campus community, for example, one call today was from a young man who is just graduating from pharmacy school. Another young man is at UK. Another young man was from Transylvania University. And so, I mean, I'm really excited to meet him.
Do you only want males?
We didn't put that in the ad.
Mm-hmm.
Did you put in the ad? Do they know that you're? I mean, do they know that they're having a male roommate?
No.
No, so they don't know.
You didn't put
Male or
the same, you didn't put for
No. I just put that we're looking for two. We have 2 rooms for
And you didn't say anything about any disability with your son, just
Yeah, I was wondering.
Young male looking
if
for-
Sam didn't tell you he was autistic, you wouldn't know.
yeah.
Oh, okay.
Would you?
I had another question. Does he want to live on his own, or is this what you want for him? I don't mean to be rude about it, but I mean, I'm wondering, has he said to you, I really want to live by myself because I want my son to do that, but right now he's just so happy being with us, and he's just like loving being at home with mom and dad.
Milt,
It's like, where's the point going to come where I'm going to go, okay, you're 30, get out.
yeah, Milt asked him that question today. He asked him that exact question. And Sam said, I love living on my own. Because Milt said,
cool.
well, how do you like living on your own? Sam said, I love it.
Oh, cool.
And Milt said, well, what do you like about it? He says, first of all, no one bugs me.
Oh, cool.
He says, I have a lot of quiet time.
I know, but he's already been on his own like 5 months. So at the very beginning, did he say, or did you start to feel that he wanted to be in his own space, or he said, hey, I love you guys, but I really want to have my own house, or I want to be with kids my own age, or I mean, I'm just wondering, how did it manifest itself?
We began talking about getting him his own house while we were still in Indiana. So
And
we began talking about,
you initiated that, or did he start talking? I'm sorry, I'm not trying to, but I want to really tease down on who was, because I'm wondering, he's 21 and he's at BCTC and he's loving mom and dad being there, helping him with school still and all this stuff. But I'm thinking, okay, do I start to talk about, eventually you need to be thinking about living on your own, or do I wait for him to finally say, which could be, 45 or something with this kid?
well, I mean, I'm going to tell you how I did it.
Okay.
And I'm going to tell you again that Milt said that Sam and I have a great relationship.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you that Sam and his mother have a great relationship. But Sam also has 4 other siblings.
Mm-hmm.
And they're all interacting with Sam. And all of them know Sam's autistic. But they don't treat him like he's autistic.
Mm-hmm.
They treat him like a brother.
Mm-hmm. So
And
you think he just wanted to kind of get out away from the siblings and all that he just wanted to be his own person?
no, I think what it was, Sam, you're 21. You got to get on it, buddy.
Oh, okay. So kind of really you guys were kind of pushing him, not pushing him, but talking about it and saying this is what
I'm
we
saying,
did.
what's the next step?
Yeah,
I mean, you graduated from high school.
yeah,
You're working part-time at Kroger.
yeah,
I mean, that's not going to work forever, and you're living with mom and dad.
Yeah.
That doesn't work forever.
yeah.
What's next? Making $7.35 an hour doesn't work
Yeah.
forever.
I think it's all real
And
comfortable
going
in my
going
house.
to a
We
group
like it and
home
he likes
doesn't
it.
work.
Yeah,
I mean, you want to go live in a group home?
yeah.
I'll let you go live in one. You can taste and see. The
Right.
book I read every day says, taste and see that the Lord is good. Group homes aren't good. I mean, I have never seen
Yeah.
a group home where clients have come to me and said, boy, I love living here. I've never gone to a nursing home where people have said, man, I can't wait.
But I guess my point is, typical kids are staying at home a little longer than we used to.
Yeah, so where's
All
the
of us
dividing
wanted to
line?
drive at 16. My kids, even my typical 16-year-old said, I said, you ready to get your license? I'm not ready. I really don't want to do that. I'm like, fine, let me know when you're ready. Because that's what I did with Evan. He drives too. So I guess my point is, when I think back to my childhood or whatever, when I was 16, I wanted to get in that car and get as far away from my mom and dad as I could. Then when I was like 20 and I went to college, I couldn't wait to be in the dorm and get away from mom and dad, you know. And so it just seems like, in a way, society is not really like that now.
Okay, now,
Children are a little bit more,
okay, now
sheltered and stuff.
I'm gonna play clinical psychologist for all of you. I understand that. Kids are different today, and they're under enormously different stresses today. And I want to tell all of you, as parents of disabled, special needs kids, all of you are under enormous stresses. And so dividing that line for each one of you is going to be very different. And I can't answer for you how to divide that line. I can say for some of you, wanting to keep your kids home is an issue that you have to deal with. For some of you, the kids are going to want to stay at home because, and Sam said it today. You know what Sam said? And he was asked this question by Beverly. And Sam said, you know, one of my problems is I'm lazy. I don't want to work. I like not having to, I mean, I like hanging out and playing with the computer.
Right. And having everything taken care of.
You know, and hey, if I can get away with this, I'm going to get away with it.
But see, I guess because I have always taken my cue from my kids, that this is a little bit difficult for me to think about it at 21 because he said to me, I was telling Mel just the other day, I'm so glad you didn't send me away for college. I don't think it would have worked for me. I would have been really stressed. I'm really happy with this situation. And if he has questions on his schoolwork, like I said, we still do help him some. And it's nice because I see the baby steps. I mean, I think he's going to get there, but I kind of prefer to let my children say, hey, I'm ready to drive, or hey, I'm ready.
Sure.
But I'm thinking on
Sure.
this
And
one,
the one
we
thing
may
I've
have to
noticed,
push 'em.
and the one thing I've noticed clinically for all of you, is that I think developmentally our kids are 4 or 5 years behind.
Yeah, then their numerical age, right?
So I think that, I mean, I'm not pushing Sam to be 25. Sam's 21, but developmentally, I think he's about 16. So I'm not pushing him to go to college.
Right.
If he expresses an interest and he wants to try it, great. But if he tries it for a semester and says, you know, I'm not ready for this now, that's okay.
So if you think he's developmentally around 16, do you think that's kind of young to be in your own house with 2 other people? I mean, even though you're really monitoring, there is going to be a lot of independence on him. I mean, I sound like I'm challenging you. I'm sorry. I'm not trying to be rude or anything, but I'm just wondering if you're worried or if you have some feelings that if you feel developmentally he's like a 16-year-old.
Well, but he's doing very well. I mean, I mean, if I thought he wasn't ready for it, I mean, he'd be home with us.
Well, Phil,
But right now he doesn't have the roommates to deal with.
Right.
Phil, I'm just curious. I mean, I don't know what our son's going to be like in his 20s, but you know, at this point in time, he does need pretty close supervision. With this Fairweather model, did they ever try to set up a self-sustaining house with some 24/7 supervision?
The supervision is one phone call away. And that's what I want to remind all of you. You know, at any time, for any reason, anyone in a Fairweather lodge can pick up a phone and call a mom, a dad, a friend, a staff member, because all of these Fairweather lodges are run by not-for-profit agencies that have 24/7 staff. So
Yeah,
I mean,
I
the
just-
only difference is that the staff don't run the lodge. The clients run the lodge, and the staff support it. But I mean, if you think about it, you know, in a lodge, they have the same access to care that you do. They can call 911. They can call any agency that you have access to. They have access to, including the agency that set up the lodge, which Task Unlimited, by the way, is the agency. You ought to look them up on the internet. Task, TASKS Unlimited. This is the best not-for-profit agency that supports special needs adults that you'll ever find. And they're in Minneapolis. If any of you want to go, I can show you why this will work for your kids. And by helping your kid do it and getting a few other kids, you can finance their adult life till they retire.
Now, is Task Unlimited?
In Minneapolis.
Is it tried to move it in other communities, or is it just centered in Minneapolis?
They are part of a national group called the Coalition for Community Living, which is all of the not-for-profits. They're in 25 states. Most of them are well, I won't say most of them. Many of them are attached to mental health centers, but some of them are not. Like Task Unlimited is not a mental health center, but they all have these small group lodges, and they most of them are working with the severely mentally ill. I'm the one trying to push this model for other special need adults and for geriatrics, because you see, I believe our young adults are physically capable of helping the seniors, and the seniors have the social and psychological skills to help our young people. And in doing so, you truly start beginning to get the kind of extended families that we have and that we need. So, and in doing that, you will get the kind of emotional and social healing. Anyway, we'll see. Maybe I'm just dreaming.
Task Unlimited funded?
What?
How does Task Unlimited funded? You said they're a nonprofit, but they've got to have some kind of resources to function.
Well, they get grants from the federal government. They get grants from the state government. They get, like a lot of the agencies here. When you help someone with housing, and that's one of the questions that we're all dealing with is how do you fund this? The little organization I've set up, I refuse to take federal or state funds. Why? Because when you take that money, you are basically being told how to do this. And I am unwilling. Now, if a client takes that money, that's up to them. But for me, I'm going to develop communities based on using rental housing. And I've got models. For example, I've got a model of a lodge that has 16, where 16 people can live together in efficiencies, 1-bedroom units, 2-room units so that couples can live together. Units are on the outside of the building. The inside is a large community kitchen, tables to share. I teased the architect who designed it for me that we have a 3% grade. So for the older people, if you just unlock your wheelchair, you just all go into the center of the. Really. But the idea being that you have your own private space anytime you want. Every apartment has its own bathroom and its own little efficiency kitchen. But when you want to spend time in community, you have a shared space together. And so that's one lodge. And if you have 4 lodges co-located, I call that a little community. If you have 4 little communities co-located, that's a village. And you know what? If you're looking in urban architecture at what's happening today, everybody is saying how we have developed our housing is absolutely wasteful, and that what's going to happen is we're going to have to go back to developing housing where you can walk around.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry. We're going back. I like to tell people, we're going back to the future. The future is living in walkable. And where do old people want to live? They want to live downtown where they grew up.
Mm-hmm.
Where do young people want to live? They want to live downtown where they can walk around. You know, they don't want to live out in the suburbs where there's no transportation. And I lived in Indiana. There's 50 cities, little cities in Indiana. And what do those cities have? They have hundreds of empty buildings downtown that are begging for somebody to rehab them for housing. Come on. You guys, we could get together, take these old buildings and rehab them and put our kids and old people in them for peanuts. And the city will give you the buildings if you rehab them because they want to get them off their tax rolls. So it just takes a willingness to say, you know, we can do this, let's do it. Yes, ma'am.
I guess you probably see this model working best for individuals that are fairly high to moderate to high functioning. Because how would you, unless I'm mistaken, how would you see it working for, say, an individual who's nonverbal?
I would see them working wonderfully well in a larger community. Larger only because, there again, you're matching the needs and strengths. So in a larger community, you're going to have people who have a heart for working with people like that. And I know a lot of people. For example, I just took a job, and what job did I take? Now, I'm a Ph.D. clinical psychologist, and I'm a pastor for 22 years, retired. What job did I take in my retirement? Guess what? I'm driving kids who are medically so in need that when I'm driving them, there's a full-time nurse on the bus with me. Now, why am I driving those kids? Because I love kids. So what kind of community would want a special needs young adult like that? There are always going to be people that have a heart for your child, starting with you. But when you build these communities, we need to find people who have a heart. And I would be one of those people who would love to live in that community because I want to live and work in the community you ought to see these kids. It's unbelievable. And their parents, you talk about needy people, oh my God. So every morning I get to spend some time with these parents who are so desperate. And they just need some, hi, how are you? How's your day going? And the kids, just loving them, even just for, getting them on the bus. It's just amazing. And that's how we lived for, how many years since we came out of the trees? And it really does, there are people that really will do that, and I'm one of them. Now maybe I'm an idiot, Sarah, but I don't think so. And I think all of us appreciate and have met people in our churches, in our families, that have a heart for special needs kids. Now, and the people that don't have that need are the people we're paying $7.35 an hour. God, what a system we've developed.
So in that case, you would adjust your ad for an
Right.
individual like that, and you would ask for someone who enjoys working with.
But I would first of all, I wouldn't look for a person like that in a 3-bedroom house. I would be looking to develop a larger a lodge, like a 16-room lodge, because in the 16-room lodge, you have enough people there that there's always going to be someone there who can help. So part of the match is getting enough people there that there's always someone who can help.
A couple of observations, and you
Sure.
can throw that into some questions too. Since you're not getting any federal funds or state funds, that means you can afford to be more selective in your essentially your son's roommate process,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because I think if
But I still have to meet all the requirements for not
Fair
not
housing.
violating any.
Fair housing laws.
Okay, so but as far as to see if it's a good fit for Steve, your son Sam, you feel enough latitude in being able to do that.
Mhm.
Okay,
But I'm not discriminating. I'm not, in my ad, I'm not saying, oh, if you're bisexual or if you're, if you don't like the mentally ill or something, don't
Yeah.
apply.
But you can say non-smoker, non-drinker.
Well, I'm not even saying
Yeah,
that.
okay. And then, since you've got, starting with essentially a real small model of a 3-bedroom house,
Mhm.
I assume that that's gonna be too small to be integrated between the old and young people.
Yes.
I think right now.
Yes.
So,
Although, if an older person were to do it, I'd be happy to have. I mean, I'm an empiricist. I mean, I got my Ph.D. in human experimental psychology, and then I did my clinical training. So, I mean, I'm willing to try anything once. I mean, really. I mean, the person that loved me the most, it was my mother, and she was older. I mean, she was 30 years older. So I'm not ruling older people out at any level on anything. I mean, I believe that old people have grace, great grace. Now, some of them don't, but am I
right.
really?
That's right.
So, and when we talk about women, I'm not ruling out women. And with Sam has never had a date in his life. But, if he wanted to have a female roommate and she wanted to room in that house, it's at least 6 months. Now, they signed a 6-month contract. And if they wanted to leave early, they'd still have to, pay for the 6 months. Yes, ma'am.
Something that we've been kind of playing around with is the whole aging in place concept.
Mhm.
And I think that might be a kind of dovetail into what you're talking about, because that would be, like in my brain, it would be if we're not ready as we get older, to go to the model that you're talking about, we could incorporate, our ability to have a home that's a community that we would invite somebody to live with Jay, like something like that.
Well, and the other thing is, if you think about this, I mean, you could live with Jay, for basically, another model that this is very close to is co-housing.
Yeah.
The problem with co-housing is it's based on everybody having their own house, which is extremely expensive. Now, I mean, I've talked to these guys. I mean, I have my wife's sister, older sister, and her husband live in a co-housing. I mean, this is in Chapel Hill, North Carolina, so you can immediately understand what kind of co-housing they have. I mean, he's the editor of a very hip magazine, But all of that is to say that if you don't have $300,000 to build your house, co-housing is not for you.
What is
What's
co-housing?
Co-housing is, everybody shares a common value, and you all buy a piece of property, and that builds their house on this piece of property.
Oh, so
And you buy
land.
you share the expense
It's
of building a common house in the center where you only have one laundry, and everybody has dinner once a week together.
So they're separate houses, but
Right.
then the community center, if you will,
Right.
you do laundry and you eat together
Right.
and stuff. So you can have like your social time, but you also have a separate house on
Right.
the property.
Oh, those are like the
That's pretty
residence
cool.
hall pods at Harvard. Houses,
Mm-hmm.
and then they have a common area. that they-
That's wonderful if you have a lot of money. But how do we help people do this for $500 a month? See,
That's a good point.
what people are going to live on in the next 5 and 10 and 15 years. AARP did the study. This study was done before the financial crash in 2008. So this was before I lost 40% of my retirement savings. I don't know how much you lost. I lost 40% in an instant. 70% of the old people, AARP members in 2008, are going to be living on their Social Security. Are they going to be in co-housing? No, they're not. Where are they going to be living? At best, if they're going to be living in community, they're going to be living in these kind of extended family units.
The other question I wanted to ask is the zoning. Sometimes, how do you? Because some neighborhoods aren't always. I don't know how you say it.
Single family residential.
Yeah,
Right.
they're not
I
always.
think
They're
it's, they have to be
you can have
zoned.
up to 3 non-related family members, what I was told,
Oh,
but I was in violation.
oh.
Because I have 4 non-related family members.
But in Lexington, the LFUCG, they're doing this very involved plan, and they're trying. And one of the things, there's been a really nice inclusion, being respectful to people with disabilities. It kind of it's intertwined within it, and I guess what I'm hoping is that the zoning that would percolate up, into the existing neighborhood structure might offer kind of what you're talking about, so that you could have extended family or housing or some of these additional options within a neighborhood that maybe says that's currently zoned just as single family homes.
Yeah,
Well, I think what will happen is that for a while that's going to be a fight.
Yeah,
Very soon it's going to be a have to.
yeah,
Right.
I think you're right.
So
yeah.
I think what we have to do is keep thinking about it, talking about it, try it 1 or 2 places where we don't have to fight the zoning, but we can do it, say in a more community. Right now I'm talking to some people in Wilmore, God's little city.
Oh yeah,
I did my seminary training in Wilmore.
that's a beautiful.
I know some people that own property in Wilmore.
Oh,
And there are all kinds of pastors who, when they retire, think, oh my, I'm going to go back and retire in Wilmore. So,
Yeah.
there's a group of people that, want to go back there, and there's a lot of opportunities. They're the kind of people that say, what do I want to do when I retire? I want to keep helping people.
yeah,
Wonderful.
that would be nice.
So anyway, I think there are some places where we might get more support for that kind of zoning to start. But it's going to be a
Something
fight.
think about, yeah.
It's not going to be easy.
Yeah,
But again, I'm a pastor, so you'll excuse this, but the good book says, to everything there's a season, a time and a purpose under heaven. And I don't get to call the season, but I know this season is coming. And I know that it's going to be in time for you kids to have a wonderful future where they are loved, they're in a community that cares and supports them, not just because you care and support them, but because you'll have been part of building an extended family community where not just adults with autistic kids, but other people. Because, you're not the only people that have special needs kids. There are all kinds of special needs kids out there, and we can build the kind of supportive community that can really make a difference. And that's what I'm trying to do, and I want to be the Johnny Appleseed. So if any of you have any questions, want to try this at any level, give me a call. Whatever it takes, let's do it.
6
Thank
months
you
is
very
pretty
much.
short trial period. It's not so bad.
My wife says another 3 years. That's her prediction. She says you're 5 years too early. Thank you very much.
Well, thanks, Bill. Thank you.